Good evening. Welcome to the latest in the series of ITA webinars trying to keep you in touch and keep us up to date on all things officiating while we're not officiating. This is Revel Good. I'm joined this evening by Chris Cetrone, and we're going to go through some of the knottiest problems that we've encountered and that you've encountered over the last season or two. I'm also joined this evening by some other partners in crime, members of our ITA committee and ITA faculty, Dean Richardville, Bob Booth, and Steve Menoff, and they're going to make sure that if Chris and I go astray, they'll rein us in. But then again, I'm sure that many of our attendees are perfectly capable of reining us in too. So without further ado, we'll move on. Like I said, Chris and I are doing this. You can always email us with any questions you might have. Tonight's format, what we're going to do is we got some scenarios that were submitted, and then Chris and I also brought up some scenarios. And so we're going to present a scenario. We're going to call on the submitter, if they are online on this webinar, to tell us what they did in this situation. Then we're going to open it up and it'll let you raise your hand, and we'll call on you and let you tell us what you think should be done if you think it's different. And then Chris and I will close out each scenario by talking about what we think we should do. Chris, say hello to the folks, please.
Hi guys, how's everything going? Hope all of you are staying at home and enjoying this time you get to spend at home.
Thank you, Chris. So, taking part, usual stuff for our webinars. You can always raise your hand and we'll call on you as need be. You can type something into the question box and Chris will take a look at it and bring it up if necessary. There aren't going to be any pop quizzes. Everything in this is a quiz. There is no, we're not keeping track of whether you're attentive or not. There's no question about whether you're getting credit for anything or not, because this is just all for our own edification. But so if you feel like taking part, just raise your hand or type into the question box. So we're just going to move into our very first scenario. This was submitted by Lori Church, and I'm just trying to see, and Lori definitely is online. Good. So in this first scenario, in a women's match, doubles, Vanderbilt, Xavier, match tiebreak 6-3 Vanderbilt. At several points in the match, a Vanderbilt player would throw up a lob and immediately say, "Watch," to her partner. There was no indication of any problem with hindrance to the other team. But in this point, she hit 3 consecutive lobs. On the first 2, she said, "Watch," just as she had been. On the third, she said, "Shit, watch." I heard this loud and clear from her position behind the baseline as she hit it. Most people nearby watching, including Xavier's fans in the stands and Xavier's coach standing in the bench area next to my chair, would have heard it. Xavier won the point shortly after the expletive. What should the chair umpire have done, and when should they have done it? So, Lori, we're going to unmute you, I hope.
Yes, we are. It's just finding, I'm going down the elevators a little. We have 60 attendees right now, so there we go. Good. Lori, you are unmuted. Go right ahead, Lori.
Okay, I'm here.
Great. Thank you, Lori, for submitting this.
Sure thing. I was hoping you'd answer it before I had to tell you what I did.
No, it doesn't work that way.
So yeah, it was, and there was no malice in this. So it was one of those you really hate to call, but I just felt like it was loud enough that I needed to. So I did let the point finish, and then I called the code violation, audible obscenity point penalty on Vanderbilt. She was dumbfounded because the point, had continued briefly, so she didn't even, I think, process what she had said and when she had said it. So.
Okay, so you let the point play out, and then you called a code violation.
Correct.
And was there any problem that you experienced in doing that?
Yes, yeah. I mean, she was upset. I promise I didn't say anything. You can listen to, we can run the tape back, and you can. And what did I say? So I had to kind of let her know what she had said, and then like I said, I think she's thinking about what she said after the point ended, not what she was saying in the midst of the point.
Okay. Now, thank you very much, Lori. Appreciate your submitting this scenario and your telling us what you did. Chris, if you would mute Lori, and now I'm going to ask the rest of you all, is there anybody else that would have handled this differently? If so, raise your hand and let's hear from you.
I haven't seen any hand. There's a hand. Mr. Pace.
Gabe Pace.
Gabe, I'm unmuting you. Go ahead, Gabe.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Gabe.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think what I might have done, whether it's right or not, I'm not sure. But as soon as I heard the word shit, I just call a code right away and award the point to the other team without waiting for it to continue.
Okay.
Okay.
That is another option. Let me ask this, folks. If you would do it the way Gabe suggested just then, raise your hand.
We have some people already with their hands raised from before.
I know. I'm just taking a look here now. I just wanted to see. I know we. Okay, thank you. Now, Chris, if you would unmute Fred Lipscomb, please.
Yes, I'm going there right now. Fred, you are unmuted. You should be. You're self-muted, Fred. You need to unmute yourself.
Okay. I would have done the exact same thing. Once the violation had occurred, I would have immediately called code violation, audible obscenity.
Okay, so you would have stopped the point in the middle. What would have happened to the point that was in play?
They would have lost that.
So you would have penalized them 2 points then?
Yes. Well, no, I mean, that was the point in play, so that ended that point. So they would have just been penalized 1 point. Didn't matter what the outcome of that point was. Once the violation occurred, I would immediately call code violation point penalty. So it didn't matter who was going to win that point. The code would intercede that.
Was there did you observe any hindrance? Or would you be waiting to see if there was a hindrance?
No, I would not have.
Okay, thank you, Fred. Okay, we've got some other people with their hands raised. If it's still raised because you were voting, take it down. But if you want to speak, leave it up. Okay, nobody. Good. Okay, everybody's.
We got some. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see.
Let's see who's still got their hand up. Okay, Ty still does. You want to call on him, or does he want to put his hand down? He put his hand down too.
He put his hand down. There was. Yep.
Okay.
I think everyone's good then.
So, Chris.
Oh, we have Kelly. Yeah. Okay. I liked how Lori handled it. That's how I would have handled it. Yeah.
And I would have also, unless there was some evidence of a hindrance, I'm not going to stop a point in play.
Yes. I'm
going to let the point play out, and then when the point's over, I'm going to issue a code or not issue a code, depending on what the situation is. Let's call on Kelly and see what she has to say.
Kelly, I'm unmuting you. Go ahead, Kelly.
I was just raising my hand to agree. I tried to bring it back down, but I guess I left it up too long. But I would have done, I would have stopped the point as well. So I'm glad to hear that I should have waited till the point is over. But it seems like if you wait till the point is over, then you're giving them 2 points. But
I think what we have to understand here is there's no real reason for us to stop a point right in the middle unless there's a hindrance. You know, we can deal with the code violation at the end of the point. We don't have to interrupt play to give a code violation.
We have a follow-up question on that. And the question is, what happens if that was the last point of the match, though? The point stands, they win, but you code 1 point after the match? They're
Well,
saying, he's asking, would you give a carryover code violation then?
No, because the code violation occurred during the match, not after the end of the match.
Right. So essentially they would get it. That would be a situation where they would get it for free. But yeah, that's just what happens in that situation. There's nothing we can do about that.
Yep, that occasionally that happens. Diana Alden has her hand raised. If you would unmute her, please.
Diana, yes. I'm getting to her. And there we go. Diana, you are unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay, if you wait till after the point is over to code, are they losing 2 points instead of just the 1 if you do it in the when the point is occurring?
Well, I don't know from the information in this scenario. I don't even know who won the point.
The other team.
Xavier won the. Okay,
Xavier
so
won the point.
Xavier wins the point, and then you're
So
going
if
to
Xavier
play
wins a
Vanderbilt.
point and Vanderbilt is coded,
Right.
so is that 2 points then?
It's
Well, no, it's 1 point
Okay,
for the code violation.
even though they finished out the point and they lost the point?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
you know, when you lose a point, you lose a point. When you
But
have
they
a
don't-
code violation, you lose a point.
But they don't lose an additional point for the obscenity.
Yes.
You
We
see
are
what I'm
going
Yes,
to
they
let
would.
the point. We're going
Right.
to let the point continue, and when it finishes, regardless of the outcome, whoever wins the point, it's fine.
Okay.
Announce the score, then announce a code violation, and then the score again.
Okay.
Great. All righty.
I'm just looking at the question box to see. Yeah, the other thing with this was what if the situation where they would be, if they are hindered, then yes, obviously you would stop play because of the talking while the ball's being hit to the other side. But if the Xavier team is hindered, then you would stop play and then you'd award the point for the hindrance and then issue the code violation. Yes.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's where we're at. Yeah. I think we covered that, right, Rebel?
Okay, I think we beat it
Is there
to death.
anybody? Yeah, Diana. Oh, did Diana have another? Diana,
No,
did you have
no,
another
no.
question or you were just trying to?
Oh, sorry. No, I must have
All good.
doubled.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, moving right along. Scenario 2, submitted by Nick Wilson from the great state of North Carolina. App State versus Georgia Southern. And Nick, I gotta confess to you, I just sort of guessed which was which team. It really doesn't make any difference. The shots from Georgia Southern players at the same end on adjacent courts bounce into the space between Appalachian State's courts. The App players race to return, converging between courts and take swings at the same time. One hits his return out of play. The other player's swing hits the racket of his teammate, causing him to miss the return. Oops, excuse me. Both coaches are watching the play. The App coach yells, "Interference, interference." Georgia Southern's coach yells, "Points for my team. They swung to hit the ball." What should the roving umpire have ruled? Nick, are you on? Let's see. I do not see Nick Wilson on this webinar, so we'll just go. Then I will call on you. Well, actually, first, let's see anybody want to raise their hand and say what they would have ruled based on these facts if they were a roving umpire.
I have VJ here with his hand raised. I'm going to unmute him.
Great.
VJ, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
No, I don't have an answer. I apologize. I had it.
Oh,
Well,
it's okay, man.
Hold on. Leave him open. Now you're going to have to answer this, VJ. You're an official.
Okay.
Read the scenario and tell us what you would have ruled.
So the Southern players are on the adjacent courts. They go into the space of Appalachian State courts on the side of
And
the
the teammates run into each other between the courts, both trying to make returns.
If I read it correctly, the Georgia players are on the court which belongs to the Appalachian State, correct?
The Georgia State players are at one end of the court, the Appalachian State players at the other end on adjacent courts.
Okay. Okay, they're together converging. They hit one hits the player out of the play. The other hits the right harvest to make.
Right.
So it's the point. It's a point belongs to Georgia Southern players. I don't think they interfered anything, and the team from Appalachian State, one partner hit the other player's racket, but the ball went out anyway.
Okay. Thank you, VJ. Michael Exton, if we could unmute Michael and see what he has to say on this.
Going to him right now. Michael, you are unmuted. Go ahead.
Yes, no, I agree. There's no interference because you're out of the court. The space between the courts are out of or not on the court, so it's not interference. And it's one Appalachian State player running into the other Appalachian State player. So I would say no interference. Both points to Georgia Southern.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that. Okay, folks, if you agree with VJ and Michael that there is no interference and that the Appalachian State players should lose the points, raise your hand. Okay, we got a good run of folks that want to do that. Okay, now everybody, well, actually, we can just do it.
Yeah.
You lower everyone's hand.
There we go.
Who would rule differently? Raise your hand.
All right, I got Diane Wagon.
Okay, let's call.
No, she just lowered her hand. Never mind.
She changed. Okay, let's go to Kirk Benson.
Okay. Kirk, you are unmuted. Go ahead, Kirk.
Well, I'm not totally sure, but I'm thinking that on each court, each one of the returners they have equal availability to hit the return, and you have to treat each match separately. So regardless of the fact that, so let's flip it around and let's say it's actually a Georgia Southern player returning on one court and an Appalachian State returning on the other court, and they run into one another. It doesn't matter that they are players of the same team. What matters is that one player ran into another player on an adjacent court, and so they hindered one another. And I don't think it matters that the ball got hit or it didn't get hit. What matters is that while he was hitting the ball, the other player hit him. So I think if you take each situation separately, you would give them both a let, and potentially let them replay the point on either side. But I'm not totally confident in that. I'm just trying to think through if you treated them separately, and if it was a player from each of the different teams that ran into one another.
Okay. Well, thank you, Kirk. I appreciate that analysis. And if you will, Chris, lower everybody's hand, and then let's ask.
Gotcha. They're
who
lower.
Who agrees with Kirk? Oh, you're not winning over a lot of people, Kirk. But Chris, what is your analysis of this situation?
My analysis is both players are within their playing areas, the playing area of their court, and therefore they have a right to make a play on the ball. And if they're interfered with, then it's a hindrance and you replay the point. So both points on both courts would be replayed.
And tell me what the playing area is by rule.
The playing area by rule extends to the next court over the court next to you's doubles at sideline.
Very good. So if players run into each other between the courts, they both are being hindered and can rightfully claim a let, regardless of whether they're teammates or not. So that's how we see it. If you'll lower everyone's hand, Chris.
Yes.
Let's see, just out of curiosity, how many people consider that to be the correct interpretation? Or excuse me, if you lower your hands again, let's do it the other way around. How many people disagree with that interpretation? Okay, so we've got a handful of people who are wrong. Okay,
We had one comment about teammates strategically planning this. If they go into that much effort to strategically plan this, more power to them. If they're able to pull that out and time the ball going there at the same time, hey, okay, they get to replay the point.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you very much. If you would lower people's hands, are there, just out of curiosity, are there any questions in the questions box we need to be alert to at this point?
There was a question dealing with the follow through. What if the first player hits the ball out and his follow through hits the second player? I would say the first is point for Georgia. And the problem there is his follow through is still part of his swing. And he has a right to like make a full swing. And that's why it would still be a hindrance. Would you agree with that, Rebel?
I would say, Chris, this falls into one of those, you had to be there.
Yes, exactly.
To see. I mean, you're going to be watching, and if you see the player hindered, you're going to give them the left. If you go the follow through, on the follow through, he had already made a full swing, or had a full swing at the ball before that, then you might rule the other way. But you have to be there to see it.
Agreed.
Okay, moving along to our next scenario. Lisa Reef. This is an interesting one, and Lisa's here to tell us all about it. So you've got Drake and Cornell men. Cornell leads 5-2, Drake serving a deuce. Drake player hurts his ankle. He's struggling to stay up. A ball rolls in during a point, endangers him, and I call that replay the point. Drake player goes down, and I have my watch going. The Cornell assistant points out to the Drake assistant that his player is down. Drake assistant goes after the player, and at about 22 seconds calls for the trainer to come over. At this point, I'm assuming they're taking an MTO, which will be a point penalty, and the set will be over. The Cornell assistant, the player, and I all look at each other, and I say, let me double check. I hop out of the chair, jog to the baseline, and ask, are we taking the MTO and calling the first set? You can see that the Drake player and assistant are initially thinking about the point penalty and the set ending. They both say, no, let's play. I now announce time violation warning and run back to the chair, and play resumes. Cornell wins the point and the set. We'll get into the more later. So if we can unmute Lisa, she can tell us why she did what she did and what her thinking was.
Lisa, you're unmuted. Go right ahead.
Okay, so had they not called for the trainer, I would have been right on top of that at the 25 seconds, time violation warning. But when they call for the trainer, I'm assuming they're going to take the medical timeout, and the trainer has to cross over a court the way that it's set up. So by the time the trainer gets there, and I'm double checking to make sure that it is going to be the medical timeout in the end of the set, we're close to 50 seconds now, which would be the code violation for the delay of game for not playing. And so now all of a sudden, because I haven't called time violation warning, I have to call it. Like, I can't just go straight to the code violation. So point ends very quickly. But I was just mad about the way it went down, because I felt like I wasn't doing my job, because I thought the situation was going to go differently. I just wish I would have called time violation. In hindsight later, I was like, if I call the time violation warning and then they do take the medical timeout, I can rescind that and just take it back. But I hated to call it out and not have it happen. So
okay, is there anything else in hindsight that you would have done differently?
I could have asked immediately and just said, are you taking a medical timeout, when they called for the trainer? But I guess, at that point in time when the trainer is coming, you just assume that that's what they're doing. But I should have just been more vocal about it immediately and said, are we doing a medical timeout? So.
Well, you're in the middle of a game.
Yes.
So.
Well, and I never tried to
for the trainer.
I never try to put that into somebody's head that, do you think you need a medical timeout? So I don't normally ever ask someone, about it. I wait for them to say it to me normally. But in this, in this situation, it just the way it happened, I just wasn't happy that it was the set point on Deuce deciding point. That's part of why it was so frustrating.
Well, if a player goes down on your court and doesn't pop right back up, shouldn't you be asking, do you need a medical timeout? You're in the middle of the game now, because asking, do you need to see the trainer, doesn't really help if you're between points.
Right. No, and I agree with that. Yes.
So in retrospect, when the player went down and didn't get back up, rather than waiting and as to whether you're going to give a time violation or not, you should just go ahead and ask, are you taking a medical timeout?
Okay.
Okay. Folks, what do you think about what Lisa did, that analysis, and what my suggestion is? Who has a comment on what they would have done? Anybody?
I'm
Apparently
looking.
not. I may have jumped in too soon, Chris.
You may have.
You want to comment on that yourself?
Here we go. We have Diana Alden has her hand raised. Diana, I'm unmuting you. Go ahead.
Yes, I would assume that if they have called the trainer over, that indicates they want a medical timeout.
Well, let's just never assume,
I mean,
okay? Let's get the words spoken, because someone could be calling for the trainer and going, no, I just want them to be here on the changeover to help me.
Yes, oh, that's true. But I think when adding, are you taking a medical timeout, calling the first set? I think by adding the calling the first set, it probably made them rethink it.
Okay. You could, some officials may want to help out the players in their thinking, or the coaches, but I just don't have a problem at all in simply saying, are you taking a medical timeout?
Yes.
They know the rules. They know that if they take an MTO, they're going to get a point penalty.
Correct, yes. Okay.
Thank you, Diana. Anybody else want to chime in? Okay.
I don't see anyone's hand up, but
okay. I don't either. So, and anything in the questions box?
I'm looking now. To the cues, ask. Yeah, a lot of people feel like without call. There is the question, without calling the time violation warning out of courtesy to the injury, do you allow a bit more time? And the question also, yeah.
Go ahead, Chris. Address that aspect of having a player down on court.
Right. Rebel and I we've talked about all these scenarios before, and when we were talking about this, we actually came to, as a chair umpire, you should be proactive here. And once the player goes down, you should pretty much be getting out of the chair, or at least from the chair, finding out what's going on and what they need. And in this situation, not waiting for the clock to go. And since the chair umpire the reason the clock goes to 22 seconds and you get close to a time violation, eventually the time violation, is because of the chair umpire not being proactive. And you don't want to penalize the team, penalize the Drake player here for the fact that you should have done something, that you didn't do something that you should have. And that's kind of what it comes down to, is you want to be proactive and get to them and find out, so there's not an issue with the time violation. You want to know what's happening, and if they want the medical, then they call the medical, they take the medical, and they'll lose the point. They'll be assessed the point. Or if they don't, then you need to let them play.
But the only evil vice I have left.
You don't have to have a face.
Who did I?
Somebody's unmuted.
Yeah, I'm looking now.
So we can, we've got Gabe Pace with his hand up. If we can unmute Gabe and get his take on this.
I'll unmute Gabe, and I'm looking for who I still don't have unmuted.
I think everybody else is muted now.
Okay.
Gabe.
There we go. Gabe, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. You know, Rebel, after you said what you said, that do you need a medical timeout? Maybe another way to show, say almost the same thing, but show a little compassion. Just say, "Are you okay?" But your first thing is your safety of the person, and then go from there. Whether it's going to be a time violation or a medical timeout. Just a small thing, but
That's,
you
that's
should.
not gay, but frankly, I don't care whether they're okay or not. I care whether they're going to take a medical timeout or not.
Okay.
And I differ here with Rebel in that I have no problem, Gabe, with you showing some compassion. There's not a problem with that at all. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Just make sure you get the answer to, are you taking a medical timeout?
Right.
Thank you, Gabe. And Michael Exter has his hand up. If we can ask him what he has to contribute.
Yes, I'm getting to him right now. Go ahead, Michael. You're unmuted.
Yeah, I just have a question for Lisa, because the scenario says that it's deuce. So why would you say that if you're going to take a medical, you're going to lose the set, because it's only a point? So it's not going to be set over if they if they lose a point, it's going to be ed out or ed in whoever's serving. So I'm not sure why that came up, why you would even say that you're going to lose the set.
Good catch, Michael. I don't know. I may have gotten the score wrong when I was putting this in here.
No,
Okay.
guys, we're playing no ad scoring.
It is
It's
no
no
ad.
ad scoring. Yeah, it's no ad scoring.
Oh, I'm sorry. Boy,
And you're replaying the
you
point
can
at
tell
deuce.
I haven't officiated in a while. Duh. Okay, my bad.
Yes,
Got it.
it's no ad
Okay.
scoring for Division One.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't listed here that it's Division One tennis, but Drake and Cornell are both
it's
Division One.
I can't plead ignorance on that one. I just brain
Okay,
crash.
Chris, thanks for bailing me out.
You're welcome.
Okay. And Lori Church has her hand up.
Lori, I'm getting to you. Hang on 1 second. There you go. Lori, you are unmuted. Go ahead.
All right. I was just wondering, I wasn't clear from the scenario if the trainer actually came out onto the court and talked to the player in any way. In men's tennis, that's the beginning of treatment, is it not?
Well, let's move on to the next one and see.
Okay.
So let's take it from here. Here's the continuation. The Drake assistant now shows me his hand holding out the number 5, and I say to him, "Bathroom break?" Question. He replies, they're going to go take care of his ankle. So I ask, MTO? The assistant says they want a 5-minute bathroom break. Whoops, excuse me. To take care of the ankle. I say he has to go to the bathroom for the bathroom break, and the Drake assistant says, so he can go to the bathroom and then the training room. I respond, he can only go to the bathroom. The bathroom break isn't for anything else. Player takes off barefoot, goes to the restroom. Trainer follows him in. At this point, I'm not sure what to do. Got 3 men, 3 women, 3 female umpires. Everybody's got a match going. Should I stop the match? Have some male umpire go in there? I'm preparing for the second set, measuring the net, collecting the balls. I got a jumpy computer, sorry. And asked the Cornell assistant, the opposing assistant, if he would go into the bathroom and tell me what's happening. That'll take care of it from there. I'll take care of it from there. He just shrugs and says whatever. The Drake player obviously returns, struggles the entire second set. At 2-5, he throws his racket. I give him a code. This should technically be match. He should have gotten a code violation for receiving treatment on a bathroom break. This should be a game penalty. The match should be over. So what should this person, who is Lisa, who was the referee and chair umpire, what should she have done and when should she have done it? So let's get Lisa back on the phone. Lisa.
Lisa, you are unmuted. Go ahead, Lisa.
So everybody knew what was happening, that he was in the bathroom, that he was receiving treatment. Drake knows it's not allowed, but these are the kind of games that you always get when you work a Drake match. I think when it came down to it, it was a very intense doubles round. Drake won the point. But when we started singles, Cornell started taking over the match. I think they won 5 of the 6 first sets. And like a lot of them were 6-4, 6-3 type score. So they had control of the match now. So I think the Cornell coach was just like, whatever. And he even said a couple times to me, he goes, this is like a circus right now, because there was just so much of that kind of stuff happening. And that's the kind of games that Drake plays. So I know what's going on. Everybody knows what's going on, but I'm the head referee. And like you said earlier, I didn't want to stop somebody else's match, stop in the middle of a set, in the middle of a game, and say, I need you to get out of your chair and go into the bathroom for me. That's the disadvantage of being a female when this is, men's match. So I didn't want to stop.
Lisa, let me
Yeah.
cut through this. What would you, now that this is over, what would you have done differently in this segment of the scenario?
I don't know. We talked as a crew afterwards, and I asked the opinions of everybody. And I said, do you feel like I should have stopped somebody else's matches? And they were all like, well, no, is that fair to stop somebody else's match to make, an umpire get down and walk into the bathroom? And that's where all of us were kind of stumped, because we all felt like he should have gotten the code violation, but none of us really knew how to handle that with a woman referee, and it's a men's bathroom. So I didn't know legally if I could walk in there or not.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate that. Now, folks, raise your hand if you want to tell us what you would have done on this. Got a lot of experience out there. Somebody want to add what they would have done that's different from what Lisa would have done? Betsy Craig.
I'm going to Betsy right now. Betsy, you were unmuted. Oh, Betsy, there you go. Yep.
Okay. I might have just as the player come back from that bathroom break, I might have said, did you receive treatment during the bathroom break? And he probably would have said no. But even though he took it, you can't say he's a liar, but maybe just ask him during that bathroom break, did you receive treatment? And see if he says yes or no. And if he says yes, then code him. If he says no, then I guess you have to go with that.
Okay. Out of curiosity, would you do anything other than ask him? Other than ask him, did you receive treatment?
Did you use the restroom? But we know that. No, I don't. Okay. I guess I would just ask him if he received treatment, and then
treatment, and if he said yes, you would have coded him, and if he said no, you would have just
I can't say no, you're lying.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Betsy. Let's call on Joel and see what Joel has to say. Joel 9.
Getting there. Hang on. The elevator goes a little slow. Joel, you are unmuted. Go ahead, Joel.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Would it have been possible to get the coach of the opposing team to walk into the bathroom with him?
Frankly, I would never do that. It's not an opposing coach's job.
And the other problem you have is you have to take his word for it. Then you didn't actually see anything. Yeah, it's not something you can ask him to do.
Okay, thank you, Joel. Let's call on Derek Sabedra.
Getting to him. Derek, you are unmuted. Go ahead, Derek.
Is it okay to ask the trainer what happened? Because it says the trainer follows him in. Is the trainer bound by Hippocratic oath or something?
I don't know. There's nothing that indicates in this scenario that the trainer is there.
The trainer follows him in. The player takes off barefoot. He goes into the restroom. Right. The trainer follows him in.
What I mean, Derek, is when the player comes back to the court, there's nothing in this scenario that indicates that the trainer has come back with him. So in terms of asking the trainer, did you treat him? Trainers, Are you suggesting that you now get out of the chair and go hunt up the trainer?
Well, no offense, every tournament I've ever worked in, there's the walkie-talkie. And I would think the trainer is somewhere around those courts, unless it's a big place. I've never been to Drake nor Cornell.
Okay. So what you're
If
basically
the
saying
trainer
is
follows them in, unless the trainer is going to be inside the bathroom for about a couple hours, and maybe he needs help.
but what you're saying is that you'd like to track down the trainer and ask
Yes.
him. Okay.
Yes. I mean, that seems.
Okay.
I mean,
I think
if that message wasn't in, I would say, "Oops, I don't know what to do." But it says the trainer
Okay.
follows in, and she's within her right. She's the referee.
Okay.
Just saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Okay, let's give David Harrison a platform.
Mr. Harrison, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Hey, I think that Lisa had every right to stop another match and bring a male chair to help her. Had Lisa been in a chair when this happened on another court, and they needed help, they would have gone to the referee and stopped that match and pulled her out. So I don't know that that's the right thing to do, but I think she certainly had every right to do that. I think matches get stopped, not very often, but when they do, it needs to be done, and I think it's okay to do.
Okay. Thank you, David. So, Chris,
Sure.
Yes,
do you have an easy solution for us?
Yes. Yeah, look, he went in barefoot. He left his shoes at the chair, obviously. So if his ankle's taped when he comes back, obviously, if his ankle wasn't taped when he left and his ankle's taped when he comes back, obviously he received treatment and you give him a code violation for unsportsmanlike conduct. If it's not, and he may have just had it rubbed, there's nothing you can do about that. That's my easy solution.
Right. Look for the evidence. And frankly, if he had gone to the restroom and was wearing shoes and the trainer went in after him and he comes back out wearing shoes and socks and he gets to the court, I don't have a problem with asking him, let me see your ankle. Was it taped?
Yeah, I'm in agreement.
You can do that. You're allowed to do that. You're in control of the match. So the simple answer, Lisa, to the second part of this equation is use your powers of observation and investigation to determine whether he received treatment or not. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. That was a pretty complicated scenario. Thank you so much for submitting it, Lisa.
And there was one comment here. Could you have kept the trainer on court? And no, you can't keep the trainer on court. You can't, there's no way for you to stop him from going outside and doing what he needs to do.
Yeah, exactly.
He may have something else he has to leave court for.
Okay, our next scenario submitted by Justin Willis and edited by me because somehow I had the feeling it wasn't a real scenario from a real match, but we're going to assume it was. Johnson hits a beautiful drop shot just over the net that lands smack on the line right in front of the chair. Hansen comes flying in from the baseline, takes a desperate stab, and is able to pop the ball up about 30 feet in the air. It's more than just a pop-up for it. Just over the net and an easy sitter for Johnson. Hansen certainly got it before two bounces, and you see this clearly as a chair umpire. However, it's very close to a not up. After playing the shot, he is standing next to the chair, completely out of the point. With the ball in the air and a clear, easy put away for Johnson, Johnson glances over to you and says, he didn't get that. After saying this, he realizes the ball is hanging there and all he needs to do is slam it. So he does just that. Hansen, standing next to you, says, hey, that's my point. I got it on one bounce, and he was talking during the point. He hindered me. What is your call, chair umpire, and how do you explain it to the players? So, Justin, I believe you're online, so let's unmute Justin and hear what, Justin, you're gonna have to unmute yourself. You can't hide. Come on, you can just click on your microphone, Justin, and unmute yourself.
There we go. There we go.
Hey, Justin.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
hey,
yeah.
how you doing? All right, I'm glad you used that, and I was hoping you guys would just give me the answer, but I think the philosophy is players stopped the point when he looked up to the chair umpire and said, hey, he didn't get that. You could say, yeah, he stopped the point, and the chair umpire will have to make a call because he stopped, and you say you lose the point because he did get it. However, I brought up 3 other things that may go against that, and that is you cannot hinder yourself, correct? So he was not hindered by what he said, okay? And the other one is you can say just about anything you want when a ball is coming towards you, and the ball was sitting in the air and he's about, ready to hit a smash. He could look over and say, hey, well, whatever, to the chair, and just say, okay, well, forget that. I just slam it away. And you can come back to the third point, which is it's a clear winner. The other guy was standing right next to the chair. He had no opportunity whatsoever to get this sitter this guy was going to hit away. So you could even go to the clear winner philosophy that, okay, it was sitting right there. It's a clear winner. So, so those are my for and against those.
But what's your best option, Justin? What is it that you believe you should do as a chair umpire based on these exact facts?
Well, gosh, I'm glad you put me on the spot. If I want more assignments, I'd say you lose the point. No, I would say, I honestly, I didn't have the answer, and that's why I came on this, came on here, because I wanted to see what you said, Rebel.
Okay. Before we hear what I have to say, let's open this up. Justin, thank you so much for submitting this, and we'll see what the rest of your fellow officials have to say, if anything. Who wants to jump in? Thank you. Michael Addison. Can we unmute Michael, please, Chris?
Yes, getting there. My elevator is slow. Michael, you were unmuted. Go ahead, Michael.
Good evening.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, what Justin had just mentioned there was for it to be hindered, Hansen the ball has to be on Hansen's side of the net to say that he was hindered. The ball's still on his opponent's side of the net, so not a hindrance in that case. There is something though about talking during a point. You don't talk during a point. So that could be a variable that's not part of the scenario here per se, but that's something to keep in mind. And it might be that, it wasn't a hindrance. He didn't hinder you. The ball was not on your side of the net, Hansen. But then give his opponent a reminder, a warning, perhaps, that you're not supposed to talk during the point.
Okay, well,
but
Michael, I appreciate that.
He would get the point, though.
Let me ask you a question, because you brought up sort of a procedure, a rule or something that I'm unfamiliar with about you can't be hindered when the ball's on your opponent's side of the court.
What I understand, like if it's during doubles point and if the ball is going, if you hit a short lob and you know it's short and you yell to your opponent, go back as it's up and gone over the net, it's short and you're going to probably get an overhead and lose the point. You can't yell to your partner, run, or lob was short.
Okay, I see what you're saying, Michael, but let me, just in case I don't want to cause confusion for the other officials here. There's nothing about where the ball is that makes it automatic that you can or cannot be hindered. It doesn't have to do with whether it's on one side of the net or the other. It might have to do with whether it's traveling in one direction or the other. But then again, according to these facts, this is a singles match. And there's nothing in the code about talking while a ball is in play in a singles match other than to say that singles players should not talk while the ball is in play, as opposed to a doubles match where players can communicate when the ball is coming toward them. So in this particular case, the ball was coming toward Johnson when he spoke, but there's no rule against him speaking. So now we have the question of he speaks, then he hits the ball, and then after that, after he hits the put away, Hansen makes this claim. So, Chris, would you like to jump in at this point and enlighten us?
Yes. Basically, you have to be aware if Hansen is hindered or not by him calling it out. Hansen wasn't hindered by him calling it out. He's basically standing next to the chair umpire and has given up on the point, seeing it's an easy overhead. And so there was nothing to hinder him from getting to the shot because he had no play on it. And so you would award the point to Johnson. Yes, I have the names right. Good.
Yes. So always remember in situations with regard to lets that you have to, in order to call a let, there needs to be a hindrance. And you have to observe that hindrance. You can't just assume it. You don't just jump in. So for starters, as soon as Johnson, said he didn't get that, you don't jump in because he's just talking. You might want to observe Hansen at that point to make sure that he's not hindered or stopping play. But if he doesn't stop play, if you don't see someone stop play, there is no hindrance. Okay.
Rebel, we have a few hands raised on this. I'm going to unmute Gabe Pace. Gabe, go ahead.
Mine was, no, I agree. Mine was raised from a previous question.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Sorry, no problem, Gabe.
Check with Justin.
Mr. Willis had his. I'm not sure if he had a follow-up. Justin, go ahead. You're yourself.
Yes, I just did. The only thing I would say on that is, can his opponent say, well, by him saying he didn't get that, does that technically mean he's stopping the point? It's not like get back, talking during the point. It's not a talking to during a point like that. It's a hey, he didn't get that, stopping the point. Kind of like, hey, that was in stopping the point, or a stopping the point situation.
Justin, once again, you need to observe. So if Johnson says, hey, he didn't get that, and Hansen immediately goes, why is he talking? Well, then obviously he's been hindered and has stopped play, and you can say yes and award him the point. But those are not the facts as presented here.
Gotcha. Okay. I like it.
Appreciate it. Chris, anything else?
We have Ken Holloman. Yes, Ken, I'm unmuting you. Go ahead, Ken.
I had the exact same thing happen within the span of a week. First in doubles, it was an easy, just barely a not up, just barely a good ball, and an easy put away. And the doubles partners turned to each other, and one said not up to her partner, and then her partner put the ball away. And the coaches immediately said they're not allowed to do that. As soon as they spoke to one another, that ended the point. And I said, no, doubles partners are allowed to communicate, and awarded the point to the doubles team who hit the put away. A week later, I had the exact same scenario in singles, where a player had an easy sitter, and she looked at me and said, not up, and then hit the put away across court. And again, the coaches came out and said, when she turned to you and said, not up, that effectively ended the point. She had stopped play at that point. And I said, no, if she had caught the ball, she would have stopped play, but she hit the put away. And I'm certainly not going to take a point away on an easy sitter just because she looked at the chair and said, not up. However, I did caution the player in the singles match, please don't speak during the point.
I think that you handled that perfectly, because once again, it's the opponent that would have to be hindered. And you saw by your description, you never indicated that the opponent was hindered in any way. So the point ought to continue.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree with you on that, Rebel.
Very good. Well, thank you. Okay, appreciate it, Ken. All right, we're going to move on to the next one. And Chris, would you take this scenario?
Sure. All right. I'm assuming it's Yale. Yale hits a ball to Brown's. Jim Wright submitted it. It's okay. Oh, it's never mind. I apologize. It's Florida versus Illinois. Vale hits a ball to Brown's baseline that appears to me be out by an inch, but Brown reflexes the ball back. I don't see or hear an out call. Vale then returns the ball, at which time Brown has stopped playing, saying he called the previous ball out. Vale is confused and appeals to me. I start to announce Illinois didn't make a timely, visible, audible call, at which time Florida's assistant coach, who was at the court, says he, being Brown, did call the ball out, and then asks his player to appeal the out call to me. I take the coach's statement that he did make the call as a concession that there was a visible or audible out call made. I confirm the out call since I saw the ball out. Should the chair umpire have taken the assistant coach's statement into account, or should he have ignored it and awarded the point to Vale, as he was originally going to do? And so, if you believe that the chair umpire should
hold on a second, Chris.
Okay.
Can we get Jim to chime in
Let me
first?
see if he's here. Yeah, I'm looking for Jay's. Jim Wright, there you are. Jim, you are unmuted. Go ahead, Jim.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. Yourself, man?
Good, good. So I submitted this and I didn't put in who the players were or which team did this.
Okay.
And Rebel, you got it perfectly wrong. It's actually the opposite team. But that's okay. So the scenarios are all right, just not really the players or the teams are reversed. But what I did is I listened to the assistant coach and I said, okay, you agreed that he made the out call. Now his player appealed to me, and I said, well, you know, the ball was out. So in effect, the assistant coach took the point away from his player.
Okay. And so if you agree, did Jim do this right? Should he have taken the assistant coach's statement into account? Guys, please raise your hand. Okay. Rebel, well, it looks like we have some hands raised. And I'm assuming that the...
Let me look at it the other way. Let's lower the hands.
Hands are lowered. There we go.
Let's ask, who wouldn't listen to an assistant coach in this situation? Raise your hand. Okay, so everybody would listen to the assistant coach.
No, I'm seeing Bill Wilson's hand raised. Hang on.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to unmute Bill. Bill, go ahead.
Don't do that to me.
Okay.
I'm still having trouble kind of sorting through the whole situation, but to even listen to a coach or assistant coach in terms of what was said or done, I would steer away from that. So.
Okay. I thought Judy Brown had her hand up, but she doesn't.
I think Mr. Pace
Mark
does, though.
Let's go to Mark first.
Mark? Okay, Mark. Mark, you are unmuted. Mark Paoline, you're unmuted. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, I'd go with the first call. I'm sorry?
I'm sorry if I mispronounced your last name. Apologies.
Well, that was close.
Okay.
All right. Illinois didn't make a timely audible call, and it's not up to the assistant coach to do it.
Okay. Now, and you wouldn't take what assistant coach is, like an opposing assistant coach is saying, what an opposing coach is saying that he did. That's what you're saying, right?
I'm saying they're not in the match. It's up to the players, not the coaches.
Okay.
All right.
All right. And Sue Nugent. Let's unmute Sue.
Sue, you are unmuted. Go ahead. Hang on. You're self-muted, Sue. You need to unmute yourself. Just
Apparently
click on
Sue
your
cannot.
microphone, Sue. That's all you got to do. No. There we
There
go.
she
Are you
is.
there?
Hey, Sue.
Yes.
Yep.
I totally agree with Mark. I do not count what the assistant coach say because I have been in a lot of scenarios where they are absolutely wrong.
Okay. I appreciate that. Okay, Chris.
You
I'll
get
go
to
ahead and
answer
jump.
this now, Rebel.
Yeah,
I was the one that got to read it.
That's right. I'll jump in at this point. I believe that that Jim handled this absolutely correctly. When a coach of a player basically contradicts their own player, that's perfectly okay. And I'm gonna go ahead and take. Remember, a coach can take a point away from their player at any time. And in this case, he wasn't necessarily taking the point away from him, but I'm going to listen to that assistant coach, who's right there seeing what's going on. He's saying whether the player made a call or not. And what he's saying is to the benefit of the opposing team. So I'm going to accept it. How about you, Chris?
Yes, I would accept it too. I mean, obviously, if it's the Illinois assistant coach saying that he called it out, I'm not listening to that because you didn't hear it. But with the opposing coach, just like a player overruling his own player on an out call, I'm going to take this where it's going against his player's interest. I'm going to take it into account. Yes.
Very good. Okay. Thank you. And let's see, we've got VJ has his hand up.
VJ, you are unmuted. Go ahead, VJ.
Thank you for that clarification. I think I either read it in a rule book, what you're saying, or maybe it was another quiz where somebody explained to me. I think I was at a Princeton match and I was just new at the time. And what they told me is what exactly you said. And I remembered it, that what the coach did is he almost gave the point to the other opposing player, saying, yes, you did call the ball out, but he advised his own player to challenge the call, leaving it to the chair umpire to finally make the decision. So maybe he would give back the point, but he wasn't favoring his call. He wasn't saying that the ball was out. He was actually saying the call was made. So in this case, and probably the only time where I think I'm told that I should actually take the coach's call correctly and accept it, because he wasn't benefiting his team, he was actually giving the benefit to the other team.
Right. Thank you, VJ. Agree completely.
Thank you.
All righty.
I think we're good here and on to scenario
Clear
6.
board, and we'll move on.
Yeah.
Scenario 6A. Oh, look who submitted this one.
Yep.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and take it, Chris.
Good choice.
I was the chair umpire, Wake Forest versus Virginia men. Doubles, dual match, 15-all, Wake Forest serving. Wake Forest players at the net. Virginia lobs over them. Both players run back and the lob lands an inch or two out. Neither player says or signals anything. They just ease up. What should the chair umpire do? I guess I'm asking myself that question. Well, what I did was I announced the score as though Virginia won the point, and all hell broke loose. Excuse me. Because the Wake Forest players are arguing and their coach is arguing that the ball was out. The ball was clearly out. And my answer was, yeah, it was out. But they didn't make a call. Neither player made a call. You have to make a call. So my question to you folks is, did I handle that correctly? If you feel I handled it correctly by awarding the point to Virginia, raise your hand.
I guess a lot of people have faith in you not doing something wrong, Rebel.
Maybe. Let's see those who. Okay,
Okay, I'm clearing those.
Okay, now who would have, if you saw the ball an inch or two out, would ignore the fact that you didn't see or hear the players make a call and give Wake Forest the point. Okay, we got several people there. Okay, let's open up the mic for Judy Brown.
Judy Brown. Judy, I'm coming to you. Just give me 1 second. And Judy, you are unmuted. Go ahead, Judy.
Judy, tell us why you would go ahead and give the point to Wake Forest.
Well, just like you said, Rebel, you didn't see a call, you didn't hear a call. So if there's no call, the ball's good.
Oh, okay. Well, then your hand was up at the wrong time. Sorry. Thank you for
Well,
agreeing
you said
with me.
if you agree. You said if you agree, raise your hand. I thought I raised my hand.
Okay, I got it. Okay, let's lower everybody's hands for a second. Now, if you disagree with me, raise your hand. David Harrison.
I got
Gabe
Bruce Burton.
Case, Ken three people who suicide mission. Bruce Burton we haven't heard from Bruce yet. So let's unmute Bruce.
Bruce, you're unmuted. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, Rebel, say, first off, I would ask, how far was it out? I mean, if it was a foot out or 6 inches out.
The scenario here is, hold on a second. I'm going to answer your question because in the scenario, it says it lands an inch or two out.
Okay.
That's what I saw as the chair umpire. It was an inch or two out.
Now, immediately after the point ended, did the Wake Forest team celebrate the point with each other?
Neither player says or signals anything. They just eased up.
They didn't slap each other's hand or do anything?
No, they were just sort of trotting back. You know, they were running to get the lob. The ball hits and it bounces, a second time, and they just sort of stop running.
Yeah, I guess what I'm thinking is usually you can tell something by their body language. And in that case, I would just caution them that they have to make a call.
Okay, so is body language a call?
Well, again, I think it depends on how clearly it was out.
Well, the reason I ask is body language a call is because I think we actually do accept certain things as calls when they aren't truly a call. If somebody screams, "Yeah," I generally on a ball that's out, I generally consider that that's the same as an out call. Do you agree, Bruce?
Yes.
Okay, I think we pretty much all of us would do something like that. So, but in this particular case, there was no body language to read other than the fact that they didn't do anything.
Okay. All right.
So,
well, in that case, I can understand why you did what you did.
Okay. Thank you, Bruce. Let's go to Eduardo Dominguez.
I actually have Justin Willis first. I had him next. He had something. He was a little adamant. So.
Okay, Justin, you're gonna have to unmute yourself.
There you go.
Well, this comes up often in a tennis match. Ball's on the baseline, slightly out, player hits it and walks away and says yes. So you got that. But your scenario is a big lob and the players kind of just stop. That is kind of an out call. And you're getting into gray area with these guys. And if you go with that technicality with them, you will be dealing with that technicality for the rest of your match. The other guy will say, wait, it was 2 feet out. How come you didn't call that out?
Well,
funny you should say that. With technicalities throughout the match, and they start nitpicking you when you get coaches coming up to you. Wait, he didn't call that out. He didn't call that out. And most
Justin,
call them out.
Hold on. I want you to hold that thought, okay?
Okay.
We'll be coming to that in just a minute.
Hold that thought. Now let's move on to Eduardo Dominguez.
Eduardo, you are unmuted. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
All right, yeah, it's a similar situation, but at the pre-match during the coin toss, I'd advise everybody you must make all your calls.
Yeah.
Similar situation, no call was made. It was questioned. I turned to the other guy. I said, no call is a good call. And like your situation, all hell broke loose. Ended up with a code violation, and that's the call I went with.
Okay. Thank you, Eduardo. And can you, are those police coming for you? Okay, let's move on to Fernando.
Fernando, you're unmuted. Fernando, go ahead.
Yes, my thought would be that what happened to the players have to make a call, whether it's out loud or with a sign.
And so what you're saying is even though you saw the ball out,
I would award a point to Virginia.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. And we're going to go with one more and then move on to the second part of this. Let's go with Ken Holloman.
Ken, you are unmuted. Go ahead, sir.
If you clearly saw the ball out, I think I would have turned to Wake Forest and said, Wake Forest, what's your call? Your goal here is accuracy. You know, if the point was out, you should just ask Wake Forest, what's your call?
Okay. I can.
If they'd have said in, that would have settled it. And if they'd have said out, it would have given the other team an opportunity to appeal it. And then you could have ruled. Yeah, I saw it out too.
Okay. Very good. I understand that. And there have been situations, Ken, where I have done the same, where I was unsure whether somebody had made a call or not. However, in this particular case, I was certain that no call had been made.
Yeah, but your 2 inches might have looked like 8 inches to them. You know what I mean?
And so that lets them off the hook of making a call.
No, it doesn't let them off the hook of making the call. But
Okay.
the point is to be accurate. You saw the ball out to award it to the other team without asking them, Wake Forest, what's your call? I just disagree with that.
Well, let me just ask you this. If I'm certain they didn't make a call, and then I ask them, what's your call? Have they made a prompt call, an immediate call?
No, certainly not. But you've got to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe somebody pointed a finger and you didn't see it. Maybe somebody just stuck a finger down and you didn't see it.
Okay, I understand exactly what you're saying there, Ken. And what I'm saying is the facts of this scenario is that, I was watching the players and they didn't do anything. I am already certain. I'm not uncertain as to whether or not they made a call. I'm certain they did not make a call.
Yeah, I just can't believe you're comfortable giving a point to the other team that you clearly saw out.
Right. I understand, and it's a difficult situation to be in, and all hell did break loose.
Yeah, well, to avoid all hell breaking loose, just say, Wake Forest, what's your call? I did that one time, and a girl said, I said, come on, meaning, I was already cheering. That means the ball was out, but she never made a call,
Okay. I appreciate that.
And I wanted a call, I didn't want cheering. I wanted a call,
Right. Okay. So, folks, based on what Ken has now offered, raise your hand if when you don't see a player or hear a player make a call, you feel like you should ask, what's your call? Raise your hand if that's it.
We have some, yeah.
Okay, you've won a few converts there. I appreciate that. But I got to tell you, I'm going to stick with my answer. Chris, what do you think?
My feeling is that they have to make a call, just easing up. If they had even cheered, that's enough of a call, but they didn't do anything. And you're 100% sure that they didn't. So you have to award the point to Virginia. If you weren't 100% sure, I understand asking what was your call. Like if you thought they may have, but you weren't sure they did, that's a different scenario. But you're 100% sure they did not make the call. So you have to go with what you saw and what you're sure of, and you have to award the point to Virginia. And that's how it should, yeah.
Okay. So now, Justin, I know you've been holding that thought for a while. So let's move on to scenario 6B. The very next point. This is for real. The very next point, Wake Forest players shot sails well long and into the back fence on the 5. Neither Virginia player makes a call. What should the chair umpire do? Well, I'll tell you what I did. I announced the point for Virginia. And all hell broke loose again. They didn't make a call. They didn't make a call. You just took a point away from us because we didn't make a call. Now they didn't make a call, and you're going to give them that point. So let me ask you folks, under these two scenarios where one has just occurred and now the next point has been fenced and no call made, how many people would award the point to Virginia as I did? Raise your hand.
We have some.
Oh,
Look
wow.
like people with faith in you again, Rebel.
That's nice to know. So let's lower all those. And if you would give the point to Wake Forest in order to be consistent in your calls, raise your hand. Okay. Let's unmute Cynthia Staten,
Cynthia, okay.
one of our great North Carolina officials.
Cynthia, you were unmuted. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Okay. I just think you have to be consistent with your call. Since the first call, they didn't make a call. You need to be consistent.
Okay. And I certainly can understand that. Once again, another difficult situation to be in. Appreciate your comment there. And let's find somebody who hasn't. Let's go to Scott Carpenter.
Scott, you're unmuted. Go ahead. You have yourself self-muted, Scott. You need to click your microphone and unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay, I would just agree with the previous speaker. Same thing for consistency.
Okay. And what are you going to say when the coach goes, wait a minute, it was against the fence. You're going to take a point away from us for that? And you're going to go, what are you going to say, Scott?
I would say the same thing applies, and the fact that it's the very next point makes it even more blatant. And I'd be shocked just that a team wouldn't make a call or a celebration, like we said before, some indication.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. Chris.
Yes.
Tell us what you would do.
The ball has hit a permanent fixture. Therefore, it is the chair umpire. The chair umpire has the right to has the responsibility to make calls on balls hitting permanent fixtures, and the back fence is a permanent fixture. So that's your answer to the Wake Forest coach, to when he's yelling at you for not doing it in the same, not being consistent. You actually are. You're doing what you're supposed to do by the rules.
Just say it hit a permanent fixture. It's my call.
Yep.
And by announcing the score, you are making the call. Okay. And now the third part of this scenario. Let's just change that second point and say that the ball didn't hit the fence, but it did land 10 feet out, and no call is made by the Virginia players. Now what should the chair umpire do? I'm changing this, so now it's not my call. It's just a ball that was out 10 feet.
Rebel, you submitted to the You submitted the scenario, so this should be, what would you do in this scenario?
Well, what I would do in this scenario, once again, is give the point to Virginia. My rationale might be faulty in that my feeling is a ball that's 10 feet out, that we're making a mockery of the game if we are going to demand it, the call, and award it to the other team if it's not made. But I can understand arguing otherwise. But I think you've got a way to bail me out of this situation, Chris. What would that be?
My way to bail you out would be that when it was Wake Forest, when the Wake Forest coach comes telling you they didn't make a call and didn't hit anything, you're correct, but your team has a response. Every player has a responsibility to call a shot that they have hit, their own shot that is clearly out by the code. So otherwise, if Wake Forest decides not to call that out themselves, they're violating the code, and I would happily give them a code violation as a chair umpire. Yes, technically Virginia would lose that point, and that's how I would have to do it. But you would have the code violation, and I think Wake Forest would get rid of the code violation instead. And there's not even going to be that argument. You just say, okay, fine, coach, I'll just code your team for not calling a ball that they clearly saw out as out. And that'll end the argument right there.
Don't you wish?
Yes. Okay,
not
yes.
with these folks. But
maybe not, but yes.
But that is by the rules, by our ITA rules and by the code. That would be absolutely proper. So all of this, the first two parts of the scenario were the real deal. The third part was just to change it up just a little bit to give Chris a chance to show how much he knows about the intricacies of the code. So, moving along.
Mr. Willis wanted to follow up.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Justin, you're self-muted still, Justin. Go ahead.
Oh, I didn't mean to wreck this. I think the only part of this that might need to keep in mind is to get into the technicalities of calls and non-calls. A lob going over. Okay, I think that was the initial scenario. Player walks back, both doubles guys walk back, kind of pick up the ball. To me, it's sort of a call, and if there's no real disagreement from the other side, even though it was fairly close, you could overrule that call, by the way. That would be a way to handle it. Just say, he didn't make a call. Correction, the ball's good. That might be a way to handle that scenario and get away from the ball hitting the fence, the ball 10 feet out. And once you get into the did he make a call, it gets so. What's that?
You saw the ball out. You're going to overrule a ball that you actually saw out?
Well, I know. Well, you said 2 inches.
Destroy your credibility.
No, I know. I understand that. But your credibility might be lost in the other way when you turn the whole match into a mockery of balls hitting the fence. And you're overruling, or you're saying he didn't make a call. I mean, what do you do then? Then you're like, wait, this guy's over here in the chair saying balls hit the fence and you didn't make a call. And then you got coaches coming from 5 courts over at you. And you're getting into nitpicky little details where all you had to do was say the ball was 2 inches out. Wasn't that close? I mean, for a chair umpire, 2 inches out is not that big a deal. For a player, they know if it's an inch out. So they don't call it. And they kind of just, they put the ball in their pocket after that and just say, that's out. We all know it's out. It's a big lob. Who cares? And then the opposing team, yeah, they might challenge it. You just say out. And if some coach comes up and says, he didn't call that ball out, you might, use a little something in your umpiring repertoire to get through that part. But I think you want to stay away from
Well, hold
getting
it.
into get away from starting to have to lock yourself into he didn't make a call on a 3-foot out ball, because then you got to do it the rest of the match, and it turns
No,
into a
I
circus.
think we've already addressed how to handle those, but I want to go back to when you said use something in your repertoire, because I'm with you on this. I'm more than happy to find an easy solution or a good solution to this. But what is in your repertoire when you don't see a call and but you saw the ball an inch or two out, and so you go ahead and give them the point and announce the score, and the other coach or players go, they didn't make a call, they didn't make a call. What are you
I would say to that coach, I will handle that coach, look to the team and say, make that call next time, and then call the score.
Okay, now I'm the coach and I'm going to say, so they didn't make the call.
And I'll say, I would do the same for your team.
So they didn't make the call.
I would do it the exact same way if it was the other way around. So let's play. And
Okay.
they probably
Okay. So we don't have to make calls anymore. Okay.
No, I'm saying it's a dicey, it's a dicey scenario. Yeah. And I would probably say it to them like that. It's a dicey scenario. Make sure your players make calls. Come on, let's go. So
okay. Thank you. And folks, remember this. And Justin is an excellent chair umpire. Many of us everybody needs to have things, arrows in their quiver to use at various times. Remember that getting through some of these dicey situations is a matter of diplomacy, choosing the right words, selling yourself and selling your call. A bad call that you can sell and get the match moving is better than making the proper call and nobody believing you and you lose your credibility. So I can certainly understand what Justin is saying there. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Rebel. So you were wrong? No, just kidding.
Never.
Justin.
So let's move on to Joel Nye. One last comment on this one.
Joel, go ahead.
Hello.
Yes.
Joel.
Okay. Well, I two things. I agree that when that ball hit the fence, it did not land in the court. It hit a permanent fixture, so that does not require an out call by the people. But also going further on about the one that landed 10 feet out, when I go in for the coin toss, I have a clipboard with me that has big letters on it. It says CPL, means crisp, prompt, and loud. And I tell them I need a verbal and a physical call each time. If you don't make the call, I assume that the ball is good, because especially in doubles, I get blocked out a lot.
Okay. Thank you, Joel. Appreciate that. All of us have various things that we say or don't say before a match, and it's based on our experience of what we've gotten into trouble over in a match because we didn't give them information ahead of time. And so what he has to say there obviously can forestall some problems. Okay, moving on to the next scenario, which Chris is going to take us through.
Okay. We have I'm roving, and during a point, Florida Atlantic player drops her racket 2 feet behind the baseline. Before she can pick it up, her opponent's shot hits the racket on the fly. What is the roving umpire's call?
Hold it, Chris. Before you answered it, why don't we let somebody raise their hand and give their answer?
Sounds like a plan to me.
So who would like to answer this? A ball hits a player's racket that they've dropped. It's 2 feet behind the baseline. What's the call? Somebody must know the answer.
There we go. I saw a hand come up just now. Kirk, I'm unmuting you. Go ahead, Kirk Benson.
So I believe the answer is that whenever anything lands on the court, it becomes a permanent fixture or it becomes part of the court. So the ball hitting the racket on the court would be like the ball hitting the court. And if that location is out, then the ball is out. That would be my interpretation.
Okay, Kirk, thank you. And now could we see a show of hands to see who agrees with Kirk that that ball is out?
I agree with you.
Okay, that's a fairly decent number. So now let me lower those hands and ask who believes that that's the wrong interpretation.
Okay.
Okay, let's go with Martin Dyer.
Martin, I'm unmuting you. Go ahead, Martin.
Yeah, let me unmute myself first.
Oh, you're unmuted. You're fine.
Okay, muted
You're
already.
muted. We hear you.
No, my understanding would be it becomes like if a hat falls off and someone hits it with the ball, it's going to be a good ball, just like the racket was still in her hand. So the ball's going to be good and the points awarded to the opponent.
Okay. So that's one for each side. Okay, let me do this. Okay, I'm just going to ask, raise your hand then if you agree with Martin. Okay, we got a few. Okay, Chris.
Yes.
Tell us what the rule is.
The racket, essentially we have a specific rule on if a ball hits a racket that's no longer in the player's hand, they lose the point. And that's what happened here. It's just like them throwing the racket at the ball to try and get to a ball that they can't reach. Once it leaves their hand, they lose the point. And since we have a specific rule addressing the racket, they lose the point. The Florida Atlantic player would lose the point.
Absolutely. Black letter law.
Yeah.
So, having said that, let's alter the scenario ever so briefly. Go ahead, Chris.
Now, during a point, the Florida Atlantic player has a hand towel drop from her waistband and land 2 feet behind the baseline. Before she can pick it up, her opponent's shot hits the towel on the fly. What is my call?
And go ahead and answer that yourself, Chris.
Answer myself. Now, this becomes, as Martin said before, what he'd stated, it actually does become part of the court in this scenario. The hand towel does become part of the court, and now the ball is out.
Right.
It is an out ball.
Because there's a specific rule with regard to a ball hitting a racket, not in a player's hand, but there's no specific rule with regard to a ball hitting a towel that is not on the player, that they're not wearing or carrying at the time.
Yep.
So does anybody want to disagree with Chris's interpretation on the second one? If so, I'm going to, excuse me just a second. Okay, now raise your hand if you disagree with Chris's interpretation on the ball hitting the towel. Okay, Martin, can you unmute him, please?
Yes, going to him right now. There we go. Martin, you're unmuted.
Martin.
Go ahead, sir.
First, I agree with that, but why would a let not have been called?
Why? Okay, Martin, you're a chair umpire in direct observation of the court, and a towel falls from a player's waistband. What do you do immediately?
Well, it depends on whether it's going to endanger one of the players, but I would allow a let if it was called by either player to start out with, mostly by the opponent.
Okay, so mostly you're right, but not completely. If a towel falls out of a player's waistband,
or a ball or anything, yeah,
or a ball or anything, a hat comes off, all of that stuff, you're going to check. You're going to look to the opponent first to see whether the opponent is hindered, whether the opponent is stopping play. You don't care whether the player who had it was hindered, because a player can't hinder themselves. So you're not going to call that. And frankly, a towel falling on a court, I'm not even going to consider that to be something that's going to endanger a player. So I don't think your solution of I'm going to call that is the answer to this question.
I didn't say I would call the let. I said, why wouldn't a let be called by either player, mostly by the opponent? But if it was an endangerment to her, I would call the let. And a towel, I think, it could trip her up.
Okay.
I
Okay,
agree that it could endanger them. Yes, I do agree that. But if the players don't call, in this scenario, it wasn't endangering them. This didn't endanger the player in any way, and neither player called the let.
Okay. Well, then the ball's going to be out. But I was just wondering why a let wouldn't be called if it was like an endangerment.
Oh, as a chair umpire, if you think it isn't, if you believe it's endangering them, then yes, you should call the let. But if the, as Rebel was saying, if the Florida A&M player whose towel didn't drop to the ground, if the opponent didn't stop play, then you'd let play continue.
And remember, in these scenarios, Martin and everyone, we're giving you the facts on which to make your decision. We're not asking you to impute additional facts. Nothing in this says that a player was endangered. Nothing in here says that anybody wanted to stop play. It just says towel falls out and then a ball strikes it. So
right, but it's
that's
before
what you have. Pardon me, Martin?
But it said before she can pick it up, meaning, at least in my mind, that she was at least concerned about it being on the ground, that she wanted it out of her way. So that would be to me that she's at least thinking about the fact that it's in her way, or she needs to move it out of her way.
Okay, if that's the case, then she's aware of the towel on the court, right?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay, then you would never call a let for her being endangered. She's aware of it. She's not endangered, or
okay.
she chooses to ignore it.
All right.
Remember that our standard for calling a let when a ball rolls on the court is there are two aspects to it. It endangers someone and they don't see it. If it endangers them and they see it, you're not calling a let. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to scenario 8. Oh my goodness, another Wake Forest one. That's a surprise. In the singles portion of a dual match, the Oklahoma player has been overruled twice. I overruled a third time and the player looks at me and says, geez, how much are they paying you? And what should I do in that circumstance? Let me ask for someone else to chime in first and tell me what they would do if a player says to you when you've overruled him for the third time, geez, how much are they paying you? So raise your hand if you'd like to answer this question. Okay, let's see if we can find somebody who hasn't spoken yet. I don't see anybody fresh, so let's go with Fernando.
Fernando, okay.
Oh, hold on.
Larry Fisk.
David Para.
Okay. David. Getting there. There you go. David, you're self-muted. David, you're going to have to unmute yourself. There you go.
I think I would give a code violation.
Okay. And the code violation would be for?
Unsportsmanship-like conduct.
Okay. Would you do anything else?
Don't know. I'm too new at this.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think giving a code violation is a pretty good idea. Let's move on to James Baird.
James, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
That's a point penalty. Second code violation for unsportsmanlike conduct, game penalty.
Very good. So what you're saying it because the overrule, the third overrule is the first code violation, and then the next one's going to be a game penalty for unsportsmanlike conduct.
Yep.
Very good. Thank you, James. Is there anybody else who would do anything differently? Let's go to Richard Sang, Kwai Sang.
Getting there. Richard, go ahead. You're unmuted, sir. You're self-muted, Richard. You need to unmute yourself.
You're
Just click
trying,
on it.
Richard. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Hey, Richard. Yes,
Can
we
you hear
can.
me?
What would you do?
Yeah, this well, this actually happened to me. So I would certainly give the appropriate code. There will be two of them, and then I call the referee over.
And why would you call the referee over?
Because it could be ground for a default.
Very good. Thank you, Richard. I think that would be an excellent way to handle things. Let's move on to Larry Fisk.
Larry, you are unmuted, and you have yourself There you go, Larry.
Okay. Yeah, my position would be flagrant code violation, and I would default him.
Very good. And in this particular case, I was the chair umpire / referee, so that would be my decision alone to make.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Larry. And Michael May.
We're getting. Michael, you're unmuted. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I mean, mine has already been brought up. I would do the code violation for the third overrule, and then a code violation for unsportsmanlike conduct for questioning your integrity.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Now, I've lowered everybody's hands, and what I'd like here is a show of hands of how many people feel that this saying, geez, how much are they paying you, is worthy. Remember, you're the referee for the match that it's said to, worthy of a default. Okay, decent run of folks. My position, I'll just go ahead and answer this. My position is that you can accuse me of being incompetent or blind or whatever like that, and it's a code violation. But you question my integrity, and it's going to be a default. I just have a hard line on that. Chris, what's your comment?
Yes, I mean, the way that the ITA wants this addressed is that if you're questioning the integrity and of the official and questioning that, it's defaultable. That's my take on it as well. I mean, I come from a basketball background, so hearing some of this isn't as much of a big deal to me personally, but to me, it goes more on what how the ITA wants it addressed. Would you agree with that, Rebel? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. We don't necessarily have to use our own standards for whether we're offended by something or not. It's like, I don't care how much somebody cursed. It wouldn't be offensive to me. I don't care whether somebody's cursing or not, but they can't curse according to the rules, according to our ITA procedures. And that's what I'm there for, is to follow those procedures. So, I just believe in this case that we should, at the very least, those of you who are not referees should be calling your referee and saying, he said this to me, I'm recommending a default, or he said this to me, I wanted you to be aware of it so you could decide what to do. If you're the referee, I think you should be defaulting them, but I'm just saying if you're a chair, you should at least pass it along. Okay. Well, we've got a couple more people who want to comment on this. Jackie Jones, we haven't heard from you.
Going to her. Hang on 1 second. Jackie, you are unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I would agree default is appropriate, or recommendation to the referee for default. It's just unacceptable, and the more we allow it to happen, the more the players are going to push the envelope, as well as the coaches.
Right. Well said, Jackie. Thank you so much. Okay, and let's go to Fred Lipscomb.
Fred, you are unmuted. Go ahead, Fred.
So I'm looking to see, is that a black and white answer? Because I heard two different scenarios from you and from Chris. One was more lenient, one was more hard. So are we taking a black and white stance on this?
What I was saying, Fred, and I don't know what you're referring to with regard to Chris on this particular scenario. What I was saying is that I do consider it a black and white situation when a player or coach questions my integrity.
Because Chris had said that, he had coached basketball, and so he was kind of, used to that, so then it was kind of like, okay, so what's our position?
No.
Fred, all I'm saying,
didn't
Fred,
give
is yeah, I come from a basketball background where this doesn't this wouldn't necessarily bother me, just like Rebel explained, like a bunch of cursing doesn't offend him. But the ITA, we are supposed to address this. And this is how the ITA wants it handled, is that this should be, in all cases, it should be defaulted. You call the referee to court, and yes, that's what it comes down to.
All right. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to our next scenario. If there are others who still want to have a comment on this, please type it in the questions box or save it for the end of the webinar. Okay, Chris, you're up for scenario 9.
Okay. Wake Forest versus NC State men, singles portion of the dual match. I'm the chair umpire. Wake Forest has already received a warning for bench harassment. During an exciting point, Wake Forest bench players erupt loudly when they perceive a winning point-ending shot by their player. NC State player has a play on the ball, but he and Wake Forest player both stop play. As a chair umpire, what should I do? And you want me to go into what I did do, or do we want to pose this as a question? What should the chair umpire do in this scenario? All the hands are lowered. If you'd like to answer this, guys, go ahead and raise your hand.
Nobody wants to take a bite of this apple. Here we go. Gabe is.
Gabe, you are unmuted. Go ahead, Gabe.
Let me just read this once more time, if I can.
Oh, this isn't like
no.
Gabe.
Not ready right now. We're going to Lori Church.
Okay.
Here's Lori. We'll come back to you, Gabe. Lori, you are unmuted.
Yeah, I would go ahead and call the bench harassment point penalty at that point.
And how would you address that actual point?
The point, well, they both stopped play. That's a great question. I didn't think that part through. But you can't call a hindrance on the bench. So.
Or does the bench harassment stop the point? Or does the bench harassment take care of that point?
No, I would say that it doesn't take care of that. It does not stop the point. So the NC State player had a play on the ball, but he stopped play. So yeah, that's great. Yeah, now that you've led me through that, I would say the NC State player lost the point because they both stopped. But then I would call the point penalty against Wake Forest.
Okay. And who agrees? Everyone's hands should be down here. Everyone's hands down. Who agrees with Lori that you would award the point to Wake Forest, but then call the bench harassment warning on Wake Forest and award a second point to NC State? Please raise your hand if that's how you would handle it. Okay.
They're either getting tired or we got a lot of people who would do it differently. So let's lower everybody's hand and ask who would handle it differently.
And do we have anybody new? I'm just looking for someone that hasn't chimed in yet. Allison Calhoun. Allison, I'm unmuting you. Go ahead, Allison.
Okay. I would not, I wouldn't give the point to NC State, because if they didn't go for the ball, then they can't get the point. But neither would I give a code because they didn't interfere. If NC State going for it and they look up and ask, they complain about the interference, that may be different, but I can't see giving a code if it didn't affect the play. What affected the play is they stopped. They must, for all I can tell, they assumed it was a winner and that they couldn't get to it if they stopped the play.
No, the Wake Forest bench players, in the scenario, the Wake Forest bench players erupt loudly when they perceive a winning shot, but the NC State player has a play on the ball and is about to make a play on the ball when both he and the Wake Forest player both stop play. Like, he returns the ball. The NC State player returned the ball, and then both players stop play. That's the scenario that happened. Yeah.
They have a play on the ball and they make the play.
Yeah. And then both players stop play.
Actually, Chris, it wouldn't make any difference whether he had hit the ball or not.
Right.
So long as in your judgment the player had a play on the ball.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, gosh, then I'm kind of stumped too, because I feel like if they had a play but didn't make the play, or didn't try to make the play, if they just stopped, but you're saying they made the play. Yeah, either way.
Yeah.
Well, Allison, remember this. They stopped. Why did they stop play?
Well, if they're not complaining about the bench, then, or if, I just didn't, it wasn't clear to me from what was written there, but.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I can tell you in the scenario, both players stopped play, and it was absolutely 100% clear that they stopped play because of the bench players erupting loudly. Both players stopped because of it.
Then in that case, I would say that they get the point. If it's clear, then NC gets the point, and you give the code because of the code. You'd have to code the bench.
Okay, Chris, go ahead and tell us.
Yes.
The real answer.
Proper way to handle it is because of the bench harassment, they're interrupting play, and the bench harassment penalty basically awards that point to NC State. NC State wins that point because of the bench harassment. That's what it comes down to.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm explaining it as well as I can. Rebel, you may be able to explain that better, but that is the scenario that happens. Because of the bench harassment, that's what caused it's their second bench harassment, and they interfered with play, so the point is awarded to NC State.
Yes. We're not going to give them 2 points.
Right.
Or we're not going to have an exchange of points either. In other words, we're not going to have Wake Forest win the point because NC State stopped play in the middle of it.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Very good. We've got one last scenario for you all. But first, let's ask Michael Addison.
I'm getting to him. Hang on 1 second. Michael, you are unmuted. Go ahead, sir.
Hi. Yeah, no, I was just going to follow up as far as like the actual verbiage for the bench harassment. I found in the officiating manual found on the ITA website that when you give that point, the verbiage is point penalty, bench harassment, the team, and then announce the new score.
Yes.
Right.
It provided since it's a second bench harassment. Now, if this scenario happened and it was the first bench harassment, you would replay the point. You would call that, replay the point, and then and announce the bench harassment for the warning. And you agree with how that handling it that way, correct, Rebel?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Moving on to our last scenario, the last that we have here. We'll open it up in a second if we need to. Once again, this happened to be a Wake Forest women's match. Doubles. Clemson serves first serve close to the back service line. The receiver calls it out. The receiver's partner then asks her, "Are you sure?" and the receiver responds, yes, I'm sure. As the chair umpire, what should I do? Anything? Raise your hand and tell me what you would do if you were the chair umpire. If not, we're going to call on somebody. Let's, Chris, let's open up the mic for Lisa Watkins and see what Lisa would do.
I think that's perfect. A perfect choice, Rebel. Lisa, you were unmuted. How would you handle this situation, Lisa?
You know, I swear, I was sitting here going, I know it. He's going to say my name. I know he is. But in this case, and I know the underlying thought is, did the receivers disagree? But if this happened on my court, the receiver says, yes, I'm sure. The question from the receiver's partner is, are you sure? She didn't say, no, I saw that, good. So she's not disagreeing, she was asking. So in my opinion, I don't think it was a disagreement about the call, hence giving the server the point, but I think it was just the receiver asking that. And again, she didn't say, wait, that was good. So I'm gonna go with the gray area, that I don't consider that a disagreement with the call.
Very good. Nice analysis there, Lisa. We'll see whether you sold other people. So I'm gonna lower all the hands and I'm gonna ask, if you disagree with Lisa on this, raise your hand. Okay, let's call on Joel Nye. Nope, Joel lowered his hand. Okay, let's
Sue
call
Nugent.
on.
We have Sue Nugent. Sue, I'm unmuting you. You're self-muted, Sue. You need to unmute yourself.
Okay, maybe maybe I'm not understanding. If the server serves it seems to me if there's a question between the two, it has to be out. You can't say a partner then ask, are you sure? Does that make sense?
Okay, unfortunately, no, Sue.
Clemson, well, the Clemson server, the first serves close, is that right? And then the receiver calls it out. Then the receiver's partner says, are you sure? Well, if the partner says, are you sure? It must have been good.
Oh,
it doesn't necessarily have to be good, Sue, because the partner could have just not gotten a good look at it and thought, ooh, I'm not sure if that was in or out. My partner had a better look at it and just asks her, are you sure it was out? And she says, yes, I'm sure. And
but
she's
wouldn't
not.
It be, if one of them disagree, it has to be good?
But yes, that is correct. Lisa's analysis was that she's not disagreeing. Lisa's analysis was that she's not disagreeing, just that she's making sure her partner was sure that the ball was out, because she wasn't. She doesn't know if it was in or out, and she wants to make sure her partner is sure.
I see. Okay.
Thank you, Sue. Now let's call on Ty Hunt.
Ty, you are unmuted. Go ahead, Ty.
Oh, hi. Well, I think first I would wait for the appeal, right? Of the serve, and then if there's an appeal made, then I would say I would go with the players that I don't think they disagreed. I think it was what you said, that maybe that one player didn't get the best look, but the other player said, yes, I'm sure. So I'd go with that call unless I disagreed with the call.
And there was an appeal.
Right after the appeal, though. Right, I said that you had to be an appeal.
Well, typically in this situation, or what happened in this situation is there was no appeal on the call. The appeal was, hey, they disagreed. That's our point.
Yeah, I don't.
So then your answer is not going to be whether the ball was in or out. The answer is going to be, no, they didn't disagree.
Yeah.
Then if the opposing team said, Well, was it out or in? Then you could rule on the appeal.
I see.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ty.
Thank you all.
Glad you got into the webinar. Okay, any other comments about this one? I'm going to lower the hands for a second. And now if you have a comment on this that you'd like to add, please tell us. Raise your hand. Okay. If not, let me just ask this. These are the scenarios that Chris and I and your fellow webinar attendees have come up with for this webinar. Does anybody have a particular scenario they would like to toss out? They didn't send it in earlier. If so, raise your hand and we'll hear it now.
I see
Kelly.
Mr. Pace's hand up. So I'll
Let's go
unmute
to
Gabe.
Kelly first. Oh, well, go
Kelly
ahead.
first. Okay. No, I'll go to Kelly first.
Okay. Gabe's had plenty of time.
Kelly, you are unmuted. Go ahead, Kelly.
Hi, I don't have a scenario, but I wanted to tell you that I absolutely love this. I'm a new official and I haven't had the experience to go through some of these weird things. So I really appreciate this and I hope that you will continue to do them in the future because sharing each other's kind of weird experiences and dicey situations will save me from having to panic in those scenarios. So I appreciate it a lot. I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you
and you
so much,
actually
Kelly.
Kelly actually did have a scenario. She
I did.
was
I
asked,
just,
yes.
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Kelly.
I was just asking in that one of the very first scenarios when she was going to take a medical timeout and that was the end of the set. If she did take a medical timeout and it was the end of the set, do you start the timeout, the time for the medical timeout after the 2 minutes of the set break?
Yes.
Okay. That was just my question. Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
You're welcome, Kelly. Glad you enjoyed it.
Okay,
And now-
let's go to Gabe.
Gabe. Oh, I went the wrong way on the elevator, of course. There we go. Gabe, you are unmuted. Go ahead, Gabe.
Okay, I don't have a new scenario. I just have a question from a previous question. And that was one of the one where you defaulted the player because of what he said. So would it made a difference if that was the first code?
No.
Rather than the third
No.
code? No, okay,
No.
that's what I thought.
No.
Okay. The
Thank
other
you.
thing, one other
Oh,
thing
go
on a
ahead.
question I had earlier about the trainer. When you watch the player leave the court for the bathroom, wouldn't you have taken a look and see if the trainer was going to go, it was going with him or not?
Yeah, maybe the trainer's got to
If he
pee
was,
also.
then if he was, you're saying, excuse me, but why are you going?
I got to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, and that's it. So we don't need a trainer for that.
No, the trainer says I got to go to the bathroom.
Oh, you both have to go. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very suspicious.
Maybe so. Thank you, Gabe.
Thank you.
Diana Alden.
Diana, you are unmuted. Go ahead, Diana.
Okay. I was at the ITA kickoff weekend in Baylor, and I was just shadowing, and an incident came up, and I'll tell you how the chair handled it and get your thoughts on it, because I had an opinion on it. It was I think it was a doubles match, and there was a line umpire. There was a ball that went that the chair umpire, I guess, called out. And the opposing players thought it was in, and they asked the chair about it. After she had called it out, she went and pointed to the line judge, who said the ball was good, the ball was in. Well, she ended up still sticking with her call that the ball was out. And it was very controversial because she stuck with her call even after asking the line umpire. But
Okay.
I feel like if she were convinced of her, if she was convinced her call was right, she shouldn't have deferred to the line umpire and asked him, because he
Okay.
really has the better eye on that far line.
Okay, let's very good scenario, but let's do
Did
something
y'all
a little bit
understand that?
different.
Did I explain that well?
Yes, and let us let Chris and me defer for the moment to someone who was there. Kevin Foster, a member of our illustrious faculty and committee, is online. And Kevin,
Oh,
could
hey,
you
Kevin.
tell us? Could you tell us what should happen in this case?
Probably got to run in this case. I'm just kidding. No.
Well, hey, I wasn't on the court. I was just observing it. So, yeah,
no,
thank goodness that wasn't my problem.
right. If you go to the line, you got to go with the call.
See, that's what I thought, and she did not. And I think she was a pretty seasoned umpire, and I think everybody else kind of agreed that you go the line, and you got to go with the line's call.
That is, yep. That is, it is actually in our ITA procedures that if you have a line umpire and you ask their opinion, you stick with their opinion.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what
All
I
right,
figured.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Kevin. Appreciate your help.
Now Kevin was on.
Okay. Have we? What else?
No, we
got
have
in
more
here?
questions. VJ,
Okay.
I'm unmuting you. Go ahead, VJ.
Hi, I thank you. First of all, I want to appreciate it was really fun. A lot of these scenarios I wasn't sure about, being not that senior and ref, so chair umpire. So thank you for that. My question is a clarification on scenarios 7A and B, where we talked about the racket drops behind the baseline, and obviously we said the player loses the point who drops the racket. But in case of hand towel, it's not the same, so the ball is called out. So here is my confusion. Does that racket rule apply also to the player? Because what if the player stepped back and fell on the ground, and he or she is outside the baseline now, and the ball hits them? Are they considered like the hand towel or like the racket? I would think like the racket, but I just don't know what the rule is.
Okay, sure, VJ. Black letter law, rule of tennis, ball in play, strikes a player, player loses point.
Correct.
It doesn't say where they are. It just says if it hits them.
Okay. Okay, no, that's precisely what I lost a match being hit when I was outside the court. And obviously I said, guy, I was outside. It was like 3 feet outside. He goes, yeah, but it hit you and you didn't move. So I actually lost the match. But that was almost 18, 19 years ago, before I even knew refereeing. But since it came up today, so I was like, wait a second. We're talking about the racket, but I think if the player is outside and hits them, they lose the point. So it's almost the same way. Okay, got it. No questions then. Thank you.
Thank you, VJ. Who's up next, Chris?
Mr. Harrison. David Harrison, go ahead. You've been unmuted, sir. He has been unmuted. Maybe
David's got a wayward hand. Okay, let's move on to the next person.
Is there? I'm looking to see if there is.
Got Kelly and Lori. And
Okay.
Scott Carpenter.
Kelly, you are unmuted. Go ahead, Kelly.
My hand was still up from before. I didn't have a question. Sorry.
Gotcha. No worries. Lori, you are unmuted. Go ahead, Lori.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to the scenario that you bailed out Rebel on, Chris, with the ball being well out. I had an official friend who had a similar situation happen where the player ran up towards the net, tripped, hit the ball back, lobbed it up. The player hit what should have been a put away overhead, shanked it, and it went way out. Well, the player was down on the ground, the one who hit the sitter, who hit it up in the air, and did not see where the ball landed. So, of course, the guy that shanked it is saying, but he didn't make a call. What is the appropriate stance to take immediately as a chair umpire? Can you say to that person who's complaining, did you see the ball land?
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
for me personally, if a ball that far out, he's saying he's not even questioning. I would just award the point and explain you have a responsibility to call that ball out. Yeah. Is
Yep.
that how you would handle it as well, Rebel? I mean, I wouldn't even ask him, did he see the ball out? I would just say, you have a responsibility to call that ball out. We all know it was 10, 15 feet out, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And you have that responsibility.
Great, thank you. That's what I would have thought too.
And you
Next up.
said, I'm going, Scott Carpenter. Scott, you are unmuted.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
on the
Scott.
one on the situation where you talked about the player questioning the integrity, would you have the same ruling if the coach questioned the integrity? Would you go right to removing the coach?
Yes. I would.
Okay, thanks.
Agreed.
Coaches
Yes.
are no better than the players. But remember, folks, remember this: the ITA rules are made by the coaches. So coaches made this particular rule. I'm happy to enforce it. I don't think it's going to happen, but okay. We got anybody else out there?
I
Fred,
do. I have Irina Henry was having trouble with
okay.
her hand. Irina, Irina, you are unmuted. Go ahead, Irina. Did you have a question? Irina, are you still there?
Guess not. Let's go to Fred.
No. Okay. Fred, I'm assuming, Fred, you're unmuted.
Nope.
Yeah, this was a follow-up question I sent you to the scenario with the woman saying shit and not stopping play.
Right.
So let's say that, the 3 lobs that went up that we talked about.
Right.
What if she says she has propensity to say the word shit? What if she says that each time?
Right.
How is that then handled? Because she's saying shit, shit, shit. And so we just waited till the point is over, and then
Sure, why not?
Yes.
Has anybody been hindered? Fred?
Has anyone been hindered? No,
That's
but
my
there's
question.
a rule about obscenity.
Yeah,
Audible
and you're going
obscenity.
to enforce it. And you're going to enforce
Are you gonna enforce it once, twice, 3 times?
Nah, I'm going to wait till the end.
You're going to wait till the end of the point and enforce it once, just the same as you would a racket that they smash and they're continuing to smash it. They smack it into the court once. It may not break. But that would have justified a code violation for racket abuse. They smack it again and then it breaks. You're giving them the whole time. You wait, as when you're administering the code, you should wait until they've calmed down and you know everything is done, so you don't have to give 2 codes for it. And you would group that all in one code, just like you would group the 3 shits all in one code at the end of the point.
Okay. It feels weird. I'm just letting you know that.
I understand it feels weird.
People that
I don't.
cursing, they're saying shit, F, and you're just like letting it go as the official. It kind of looks like, well, what are you there for?
No,
you would address it at the end of the point.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Don't look for ways, Fred, to interfere in the play of a point. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the best way to put it. Okay, and we got one last one before we go. Justin has his hand up.
Justin, you're unmuted. You're self-muted, Justin. There you go.
Okay, yeah. This one is for the enforcer. I think he knows who he is. And I'm just like, what if 2 players come up to the net and one of them says, I do not want you as my chair umpire. Can we change this around? What do you do?
Are you the referee?
No, I'm a player.
No.
You're the chair umpire, and I say, I don't want
right.
you.
And my question is the chair umpire also the referee or not?
No, he's just a has-been referee, or has been chair umpire.
Okay, then the answer is that chair umpire should say, I'll be glad to call the referee over and you can speak with them. That's all the chair umpire needs to do.
That's it? Okay.
Yeah, sure. Let that play. What the
enforcer would say that? The enforcer would say that?
I'm saying that if the player said that to the chair umpire, I do not want you as my chair umpire, the chair umpire should call for the referee and let the player speak to the referee. By the facts that you have presented, the player did not do anything, disrespectful or obscene or anything. They simply said they didn't want you as their chair umpire.
Okay.
Now,
I was just trying to end this with a little humor, but
that has happened before. I know as a referee, that's happened to me before pre-match. Yeah, with coaches coming and saying, "Yeah, we'd prefer that this chair umpire not do this player's match. They just don't get along." And
no.
okay, and if you can
But
change, if you can,
but if he has
avoid
a
it, you would.
reputation, yeah. But if he has a reputation as an enforcer, I mean, it gets a little dicey.
That's your word for the evening, Justin. Dicey. Thank you.
All right, I was just messing with you guys. You guys are great. I love you.
Thank you, Justin.
One last one from a North Carolina official, Cynthia Staten, and then we'll move on. And Cynthia, need to unmute yourself.
Oh, I just muted her. There you go.
Okay,
Yep.
sorry.
Hey,
I just have a follow-up to Justin's question. So what should a referee do in that case? Should he just change up the umpire?
No,
Chair
the
umpire?
referee, what a referee should do is come and go, what's the problem? And I don't want this guy as my chair umpire. Why not? I want to find out if there's, what the bad, well, the last time I had a match with him, he overruled me 3 times. Okay. So, I would take the information and see whether that chair umpire really is conflicted enough that I needed to change it. But the preponderance of the evidence of the evidence is going to be that you're going to keep your chair umpire. You're not going to let a player determine who gets to chair their match. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I would agree that you're not going to allow a player to affect that in the middle of a match. If I explained, I've had.
Oh, this was at the start of the match.
If it's
Chris?
at the start of the match, that would be a different story. Yeah. At the start of the match, I'm not going to allow that I would leave the chair umpire in there as well. Yeah.
I mean, if he
difference.
If he came up with some outlandish reason why this chair umpire was corrupt or something, and here was the information, that might be different. But like I said, 99.9% of the time, you're going to say, "Thank you. Now let's play."
Yeah,
okay.
That's what's going to happen.
You do have to hear them out. Okay.
There
folks,
could be, I do see, Rebel, you see how there could be justification, though, in a situation where, okay, this may be the best scenario to just not have this as a problem. But if there was such an issue, this also comes to chair umpires that when you come to a match, you want to make sure that you're telling your referee if you had a problem with the player before. Because, yes, if it can be avoided, you shouldn't see that player. There's already that issue happening. So that's all.
Yep. Okay, folks, this has been most enjoyable on my part. I've really enjoyed listening to Chris, and I want to thank the rest of our staff for also coming online and being available to us in case we needed backup. You attendees have been great. A lot of good participation. A lot of good thought went into your responses. We hope that you've enjoyed going over knotty problems. We'd be more than happy to do this again in the future since we don't have any matches to do. The best we can do is talk about matches. Feel free to email either Chris or me with your thoughts on that, or feel free to email Chris or me with any other scenarios that you have that are coming up that may have arisen. We're more than happy to work with you on it. And with that, thank you, Chris, for your assistance. Any last words from you?
No, thank you, Rebel.
Okay.
Appreciate it. It was a pleasure.
We're going to go ahead and shut down this webinar. Thank you all again. Good evening.